first couple of people we looked at were two young ladies, quite different in shape and size, one fairly petite, the other one very tall, but interestingly very similar results when it comes to looking at their body fat percentages. So Debbie, for example, was 178 centimetres tall, which is really quite tall for a girl, and weighed 74.4 kilos. Now on the face of it that sounds like quite a lot, but in fact when you look at her BMI it comes out at 23, which is absolutely excellent. And again her body fat percentage was around 25%, which is good, and her waist to hip ratio again was normal. And then we had Roseanne, who's quite a petite girl, 165 centimetres tall, weighs only 61.5 kilos, but has exactly the same BMI of 23. And looking at the two girls together, you probably wouldn't have thought that they were going to come out with exactly the same figure. And again, her body fat percentage just under the 25% mark, and a very similar waist to hip ratio. Then if we come on to the two chaps, they look very different and their results are very different. The first bloke we looked at, Clifton, who's quite small but very, very, very muscular, 1.7 metres tall, and he weighed 70.7 kilos. And his BMI actually works out at 24, which is a bit more than our ladies that we looked at, and almost tipping up towards the overweight mark, whereas clearly looking at his body, there was not a lot of spare fat on him anywhere. So when you measure his body fat percentage, it's actually only 14.8, which is almost at sort of professional athlete type levels. We had a waist to hip ratio of 0.77, which is well under the limit of 0.9 for a bloke. Whereas Chris, second bloke that we looked at, very, very tall, 195 centimetres, but heavy. He weighed twice as much as Clifton did, 143.1 kilograms. So his BMI was actually 37.6. So that is not just well into the obese range, it's heading into the morbidly obese range. His body fat percentage, however, was 34.7%, which is perhaps not as worrying on the face of it as the BMI. And I think that again reflects the fact that he's a very, very big chap, so you would expect him to be fairly heavy anyway. However, his waist was 120 centimetres and his hips were only 123 centimetres, so his waist to hip ratio is 0.97, so that's really quite high for a bloke.